Fiction Favours the Facts, Book 2, another 22 Bible-based micro-tales, written by Mark Morgan, narrated by Mark Morgan. Laban's Lament. For the true story, see Genesis chapters 29 to 31. It's just not fair. How come Jacob has ended up with everything he wanted, and I get nothing? Everything that he has was mine, and, to be frank, it still should be. My name is Laban. I live in Paddan Aram, northeast of Canaan, and Jacob is my son-in-law. I had 2 beautiful daughters, but they have been stolen from me. I had enormous flocks of sheep and goats, but they too have been stolen. Even my chief shepherd, an excellent worker, as I have always said, has gone. It's quite a long story, but I think it is worth telling the whole sorry tale, so that you will see clearly how badly I have been treated. About 20 years ago, my nephew Jacob had to run away from home because of some trouble with his brother Esau. He came to me because he knew that I would look after him, and he had probably heard about my daughters too. Naturally, I welcomed him into my home, and he stayed for a month as I helped him to get acquainted with the area, lending a hand with my sheep and things like that. It didn't take long to see that he was head over heels in love with my younger daughter Rachel. I could have used that attachment to make him my slave forever, but that's not my way. I believe in fairness. At least, I did. Now I'm not so sure. Anyway, after that first month I was up front with him and said that he didn't have to serve me for nothing just because he was my kinsman, and I pressed him to name his wages. Of course, having watched him looking at Rachel, I had my suspicions what he would want, so I had been dropping hints all month about the going rate for bride prices around here. I'm afraid I may have exaggerated the price a little, and I was almost embarrassed when he offered to work for 7 years to be able to marry Rachel. 7 years! I would have been happy with 3, but he had made the offer, so I didn't want to argue. We agreed on the deal, and he kept working for me. Jacob was a very good worker and an excellent shepherd. My flocks and herds were expanding at an enormous rate, and I couldn't have been happier, except that the 7 years were flying by and Leah still wasn't married. I truly did all I could to find a suitable young man for her, or even an old one if necessary, one who was willing to pay the amount I needed. Jacob had set a high expectation for bride prices, and none of Leah's potential suitors were willing to pay so much for her. She was a very attractive girl in her own way, but those eyes did tend to put people off, particularly when they heard that I was expecting the equivalent of 7 or 8 years' wages to win her hand in marriage. As everyone knows, the older sister had to be married before the younger one, so things began to get a little tense as the years passed. Of course, I couldn't talk to Jacob about it. It would have been too embarrassing for him, so I just let things go. After about 6 years, there was a little nibble from a rich old man. He was even older than me, who wanted a young wife. But unfortunately he lost his courage when I suggested a starting price of 10 years' wages. Maybe I was a little greedy there, but I still think she was worth every penny of it. I would have been willing to negotiate. Nevertheless, it made me hope, and that distracted me, so that I didn't talk to Jacob about the situation. I wanted to explain fully what would happen if Leah was not married when the 7 years were up, but I never got around to it. When the day arrived, I had no choice. Wanting to make sure that Leah and Rachel didn't get too badly upset or make a scene, I hadn't told them what was happening. In the morning I sent Rachel away to see a distant relative. For some reason she seemed almost distraught. Anyway, once she had gone, I told Leah the news, and she seemed upset too. But when I made it clear that there was no choice, she toned down the crying a little.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?